Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and today I have an incredible guest. Her name is Shanti, and she is a woman of many talents. She's an ordained minister, a M-Onyx, quantum recalibration, advanced practitioner. There's so many things. I'm reading a list, so forgive me for looking down. A spiritual coach, ascension guide, channel, licensed massage therapist, master herbalist, meditation coach, and an author. She just recently published a book, which I encourage you all to check out after the interview. So welcome, Shanti. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. I wanted to ask a little bit about your upbringing. I know you're not from the United States. So if you could share with the viewers where you're from, I think that's such a fascinating story. Your background, your childhood, and all of that. And then we'll just kind of unfold from there.
Well, I moved to the country in 91, I believe. And I was born in Azerbaijan, in the capital, Baku. And I lived there for 13 years. And then the war broke out. Azerbaijan is a Muslim state, and I was Christian. Back then I was Armenian by nationality. So a conflict broke out and we were forced to flee and move to Armenia. We stayed there. I was there through the great earthquake of in Armenia, that massive earthquake. I think it was in '89.
Wow.
And somewhere then. And after that, we applied for refugee status to come to the United States. And in 91, we arrived. That's how I ended up in the United States.
How old were you at that time?
So I was 16 when I came to America.
And what?
16 years old.
Did you move to the Northeast? Have you been in the Northeast since then?
No, I lived in South Dakota for 10 years.
Dakota.
Yeah, and for 10 years, I dreamed to get out of it.
You're a sun goddess, so I can't imagine you living in the snow.
It was difficult.
Wow.
My eyelids would feel like they were frozen. It was that cold.
You probably were.
Yeah, so I escaped when I went through to get my master's degree in languages, and that's how I left South Dakota for California.
Okay, so where did you attend school?
I went to, I got my bachelor's in University of South Dakota in South Dakota, and then I applied for Monterey Institute of International Studies, went for master's school there, which I was miserable through it the whole time back in the days that I would do things that I should be doing. And I was miserable through the whole school. And I graduated in 2002, and that was right after 9/11. So the job market was really, really tough, and I couldn't find anything. And that's how I ended up in Massachusetts, because my family back then were here. That's how I ended up in Boston area.
Yeah, so what kind of job did you get right out of school?
Right out, I was master's in theory of translation and interpretation, because Russian is my native tongue, and I also used to be fluent in Spanish. So that combination was really good for doing translation projects. But I, back then, was a really impatient person. So translation was a torture for me, because I had to stay still and literally spend hours on translating, many pages.
Yeah.
So what I found was project management, which suited my personality. Is the multitasking, is the go-getter, is the like.
What was the job? I'm sorry?
Project management.
Oh, a project manager.
So I became a project manager. And I did it for several years until I decided to have children and decided to get married.
Okay, so now you're such a gifted you're such a gifted healer and person in general. Were you
Thank you so much.
always open and connected from the time you were a child, or was that something that you developed later in life?
I was very sensitive as a child. I grew up feeling everything and everyone. And because I grew up in such a very strict household, I grew up really in the frequency of fear, in the frequency of fear, in the frequency of worry. My dad was super, super strict. So that was kind of instilled in me, and really like pretty much like a military regime kind of upbringing, which took me many years to get over, to forgive, to
Yes.
release, and eventually come into a full gratitude. So,
Yes.
but I was sensitive when we would go to my mom would take us to a spiritual places. We lived in a capital, and every summer we would go to a country house, and that's where I was myself because I was free. All I had to do was just run around. No homework, no have to do this, no have to do that. It's not just, A, B, C, D, very, very, very strict. So there I was free. And when she would take us to go hiking, Armenia is such an ancient country dating back to Bible times.
Yes.
So there would be like mini structures, like mini monasteries, and you get in, and there are only candles that people go up the hill, go up the mountain, and they place a candle for whatever reason. So when I would get into that place, I would be like so overwhelmed because I would feel the presence of everything. And then I would freak out a little bit because I didn't see, but I was feeling everything.
Yes.
But I didn't talk about it. I didn't speak up about it because I wasn't thinking, I think that I would find support in it,
Right.
Also, much of the things I don't remember. It almost feels like I was just blocking things out. I was in a survival mode because I was such a free spirit child that was constantly suppressed.
Yeah, that must have been so hard for you to be constantly put in this box that you did not belong in. And you're such the reason I wanted to have you on the show is you are so authentic and you are so good about living your truth. So that must have felt like torture for your.
It was an absolute torture, although, my sibling doesn't see it from that perspective. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I know.
He's a different person, right?
Different, absolutely. And I watch my children now. Also, I have 2 boys, and they're so different. The younger one is like me, and I can see his sensitivity. And the older one is not that sensitive. So, it took me many years. It's only in my late 30s that I fully arrived at understanding how essential that suffering was for me. You and I both know, and I'm sure many share this, that everything is a contract and it's an agreement, especially between the family members.
Absolutely.
And it took me a while to come into the place of forgiveness and acceptance that all was an agreement, and it was done for my highest good, because I wouldn't be where I am right now in my understanding, in my freedom, in my authenticity, in my integrity, if it wasn't for all the suffering that I went through.
It's such a process, though, to get to the place of acceptance, forgiveness, and then being able to say, actually, thank you.
It's a choice.
Because what I came to realize was every single person that I had conflict with, they were playing their role perfectly for me to get the lesson from that experience, even though it was very painful for me, so it sounds like it was the same for you too.
Absolutely. There are so many people who come into our lives that serve as inspiration. Everything is here to inspire us. We either get inspired to be like that, or we get completely inspired to be anything but that.
Right.
Yeah. So I came to terms with my parents. I spoke my truth, and I said, I'm so grateful because you taught me so much that I valued in your upbringing to me. It's because of their strictness that I became so persistent. And of course, probably my horoscope, the Taurus nature, has something to do with it. But there were also so many things that they taught me that this is not what I want to be. So it's that amazing example. And as we grow up, of course, we acquire so much as a children from the early age up until like 7, 8 years old. We're like sponges. And then it becomes a program that is very difficult to shed because it's deeply lodged in us.
It's so difficult to programming.
Well, that's why we have more connects.
Exactly, and we'll get to that. But first of all, let's get through the process of what brought you here. So you ended up having 2 children.
Yes.
And did you stay, is that when you started all of your certifications for?
Yeah. You know, the journey is so long. The birth of my first son, Nicholas, was a turning point for me because it was very difficult pregnancy. It was extremely emergency delivery of him. So he came with a purpose.
Yes.
And he played a great role, one of the key masters who played a role in my awakening and self-realization. I was breastfeeding him like when he was just born, so would have to breastfeed all night long, right? Mm-hmm. And I was so tired because I couldn't sleep at breastfeed like some others can. I couldn't lie down and breastfeed and go to bed. No, I had to like be sitting and be awake. And one day I was sitting and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch some TV. And I turned on the TV and it was Oprah show. And I never watched Oprah. And the Oprah had Eckhart Tolle on her show discussing his book, The New Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was so out of my character. But once I saw that, I just knew. I instantly went on Amazon. It was instant. I ordered the book and I turned off the TV. Like I wasn't because I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
And I bought the book, and once I read the book, for me that was the book that opened me up big time. It was the book that went click. That point where that crossing point into, oh my God, that aha moment.
Yes, there's more to this, right?
Absolutely. That was after that I started reading all sorts of spiritual. I was swallowing it like water. I stopped reading fiction, and since then I haven't read a single book of fiction.
Yeah.
Since 2006.
I could relate to that very much. It's kind of like every time I read one, then it would lead me to another, then another, then another. And as you're reading all those books, you're expanding your mind.
Absolutely.
Suddenly you're starting to expand your awareness of what's possible, of what's programmed response. It starts, things that happen to you start to make sense in a different way.
Absolutely. We form a different perspective.
Your
experience.
Yeah.
Words are such a powerful, and they carry very potent vibration, especially when they're written by the masters, when they are written by the people who live in the vibration of love. Whether they're channeling them, which is everything is pretty much receiving. When you write words of truth, it can only come from the place higher than the 3D.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you read that information, you feel it imprinting into your physical form. Whether you actually tangibly feel it or not, the work gets done. And
Yes.
maybe you get awakened right in that minute after you read the book, or maybe if it's not that time yet, it will still in you.
It's
And
kind
at
of like
some point of your journey, it will click.
kind of like planting a seed, and then when it's time, it starts to
Yes, grow.
grow. Yeah, yeah. Which I saw your garden pictures.
Yes, it's growing. It's so cool.
Pretty exciting. So you had your first son, and then that was kind of the beginning. How old is he now?
He is 12. He is 12.
This
Yes.
was 12 years ago.
That was 12 years ago. And the really big moment that happened a bit with Nicholas and me was that he was maybe almost 1 year old. That was the moment when I actually realized that, oh my God, so these thoughts are not just thoughts. I'm actually getting messages from whomever it is. Back then, I didn't know. So I was sitting on a couch, and back then we lived in California. And my husband then was looking to book a hotel because he had an interview in LA. And we lived 5 hours from LA. So he's booking a hotel, and I'm giving him all the criteria. I'd like to be by the ocean. I wanted to be here. I wanted to be there. So I'm comfortable with the 1-year-old. And as he books the hotel, I'm like, Nicholas is sitting on me, and I'm playing with him. And all of a sudden, I get a thought, bed bugs. And I'm like, what? Where did this come from? And I ignore it. I completely ignore it. We arrive to the place where we are. Here comes the nighttime, and I'm still breastfeeding him so when he is 1 year old, and it's pitch black in a room, right? Only the moonlight coming through. And I'm like, I am itching. Like, my ex-husband is next to me. I am itching, and I already opened my eyes, and I can feel the movement in the room. I can feel the movement like everywhere, And I turn on the light. And this was one of the nightmarish experiences for me, of my life, disgusting experiences. Within 5 seconds of time, all the bed bugs were there were so many bed bugs.
Oh my God.
It wasn't one, Wendy. It was hundreds.
Oh my God.
I'm going like this right now.
And you have a baby too. And you have the baby too.
Sleeping separately on the bed, and they were all around me. So, that was for me, and on top of that, I wanted to run into the shower to take a shower. There was no water. So this experience had to get so critical, so dense, for me to finally pay attention. It was like, Shanti, pay attention.
That message meant something. Yeah.
So after that was the huge shift for me. And I was paranoid for a year. I was watching. Is this a message? Is this me? Is this my ego? What's happening? It was difficult, I'm telling you. And then I kind of shut down. I got tired. I'm like, I'm tired of this. I'm just going to let go. So I shut down for a few years again. But through my whole life, what got me through all kind of very traumatic experience, I went through different kinds of experience. I have the capacity, and that's the grace that always, I think, flows, through me, that was tangible, to always look on the bright side. I never let the experience really grab a hold of me, I would stay there for a little bit, but then I would let go.
Yeah.
So as the time progressed, and in here and now moment, I don't stay there at all. You can't stay there.
You start to master and recognize it, right? And once you start to learn how to transcend it or transmute it, the situation, as you go further, get more masterful at it and recognizing it and being able to transmute
acceptance, the way I see it, is the key, is being okay with what you feel, rather than so disliking that what you feel that you can't even come close to the place of loving it, because only by loving you can actually transmute. It's been written in all the books. Love is all that there is, and love is what heals, and hurt is what separates.
Yes.
So, but we as human beings, we carry attachment to us liking the feelings that we're feeling. And the feelings that we don't like, such as sadness or resentment or grief or hurt, we don't want to feel that. So I don't want to feel this. I want to feel better. I want to feel better. I want to feel better. So all that wanting to feel better, all that desire to escape what we're feeling is what creates the resistance to healing to begin with. So it begins that vicious cycle of being stuck.
Vicious cycle.
Running away from yourself. So many have heard, don't be sad about your sadness. Don't be angry about your anger. That's what creates the density. It's not the emotion itself. Because sadness is beautiful. You're sad, be sad. Cry it out. That is transmutation. Is when you're totally okay to sit for one day or maybe for a month. Whatever it is, it takes you to release the sadness that has been imprinted into you because of your interpretation of your human experience, whatever you went through. Right. But when we suppress that, it turns into depression.
Right.
That is already not okay.
Yeah, it becomes resistance, right? And that creates more, it accelerates and intensifies what is already being experienced, right? Versus surrender and acceptance and allowing it to process through and to be felt and then released. It's a much different kind of energy, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very different, because we can't heal that what arises from us, that we observe in ourselves. We can't heal anger with anger. We can. That's a war.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, love is the highest vibrational frequency. So, of course, if you want to heal yourself, you have to open your heart and go to love.
To yourself.
To yourself.
No one else.
Yes.
It begins with us. You know, Gandhi's word always resonate in my head. The change in the world begins with you.
Yes. And
first we have to learn to love ourselves truly, but not just in words, you know, not from the place of ego, but from the place of full acceptance of your own shadow.
Yes, absolutely.
All these negative emotions, we need to accept our shadow. And that work continues on daily basis. With every little human experience, we have a whole new opportunity to greet that shadow and said, come over here and I'll give you some love. Rather than go away, I don't want to deal with you. You are a bad person and I don't want to be a bad person. I don't want to be resentful. Oh my God, jealous. I shouldn't be jealous of my friend. So all this stuff that goes how we should be, rather than how is it that you actually are. And being accepting of that, becoming the loving space for your own release. But we all seek that healing on the outside, giving away our power to someone to heal the emotions for us, where the unconditional love comes first and foremost from our higher self, from our place of I am. Yeah. That is the place of true healing.
Absolutely. I think it's an unfortunate pattern, but people want to avoid that place.
been there.
You have to actually you actually have to go into the suffering. You have to go into the dark.
Mm-hmm.
You want to transcend it. You have to face it and go there. But so many people don't want to feel that fear or negativity or that story like you're talking about, and they avoid it. And so that's what we're hoping to accomplish with our energy. Our energy work is to help people to release a lot of that programming and the fear frequencies and the depression and anxiety by allowing us to pull a lot of that karmic stuff out and accelerate that process of release a little bit, right? But before we go there, I would love to hear a little bit more. So then you had your second son, right?
Yeah.
And how many years later was that? How?
That was 2 years. 2 years later. For me, everything was like, in a way, calculated. I was like, I have to have this one, and I have to have that one, and then I'm done.
It's all planned out.
I had to bring those two boys into this.
Yes. And so when did you begin this incredible journey of healing and becoming a minister and meditation, and how did that all unfold for you?
That started, Nico was a catalyst for me, because Nico was born with pretty much very severe allergies from the start, and then asthma. So since he was little, I mean, it would kill me. Before, it would just, every time that my son needed a thing to breathe, it would just kill me on the inside, and I would cry and I would cry. And I would get upset with my husband, and I would say, you get so stressed out about your work, but when he can't breathe, I don't see any emotion from you. I used to be a huge drama queen. Like, I know. And I used to be also very shy. People are like, you shy? I'm like, yeah.
You're so different now.
There, it took a lot of hard work on myself to overcome that.
I'm sure. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge all the work you've done. You've come so far. You're such a beautiful light being. But
thank you for acknowledging.
So that created a lot of stress for you.
Yes, a lot. And that brought the desire to wanting to heal him. Just him. It was all about Nico. Nothing else existed for me, right? And I somehow, my mother, she was such an interesting also catalyst in my journey, because my mother took a couple of Reiki courses, I don't even know how she came into it, but she did. And then I was like, oh, Mom, maybe your Reiki teacher can do some healing on Nico by doing long distance Reiki. That was 2012, 2011, somewhere there. And no, even earlier. Sorry, no, that was 2010. We're talking 2010 or 2009. And then I was just sitting, and I'm like, it's so hard, Wendy, to keep track of time, of the chronology of the event. I'm going to back that up a little bit, because so I was project manager, but then I quit. I was sitting with kids at home. And then after 3 years, I decided that this is not it. So after 3 years of being stay-at-home mom, something inside of me started to feel really not at ease, because for the first 3 years, I was like, I found my purpose. And then after 3 years, I'm like, no, this is all awesome, but this is not it. This, I would know if this is it. This is not quite it. So I'm like, okay, let me go back to work and see what unfolds. And I got a job very easily again, back in project management. And that was one of the first, this tangible, energetic experiences. As I was driving my 5th day to work, I started to understand that I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. What before was so good for me, being multitasker and being all hyper and active, I realized that I couldn't do this, and I could feel this dark cloud, literally. It felt like a dark cloud over me. And after 7 days, and we were broke, we didn't have much money then. And I went to the manager and I said, I have to quit. I said, are you serious? I go, I actually can't do this. I'm sorry, but I have to find something else for me. So, and it was so well received. He goes, thank you for speaking your like just truth, like as they are. I'm like, yeah. So, and I left. And that's when the search began. I'm like, so what am I to do then? I know I have to work. I am not a stay-at-home mom. I gotta work. And then one day, my mom brings me a prayer. She brings me a prayer of Saint Francis de Assisi, the peace prayer. Lord, make me the instrument of your peace. Basically, the whole prayer, although I'm not religious at all, was about being of service to the source. It's about how it's not about me, it's about others, because through that, you back to you.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And that clicked when I just had to read that. So you see how mom was guided to bring me that paper. I just had to read it, and it went click, 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 click. It activated, and I said, I know my purpose. It's not all about Nicholas. So it became about everybody else, literally, over reading a prayer.
Wow.
You know, I put that prayer under my pillow. And for a course of several months, before I would go to bed, I asked, please show me what am I to do. And back then I did oils already, essential oils. And I started to feel that making formulations for people, I was like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if I could apply these oils to people, like giving them massage. And it was just kind of coming, into my head. And one morning, as I sat up on the bed, I was like, I'm going to massage school. And that was it. And that's how the journey really began.
Wow.
Our whole family was like, what? You have masters? You're this years old? You're going to go be with the 18 years old? You're going to go work at some... I was bombarded with yada, yada,
all the negatives, all the reasons you shouldn't follow your
yeah.
Are you crazy? You could go to a corporate...
I was like this.
Yeah.
I can't hear la, 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 la.
Yeah, yeah. So you followed your heart and you got into massage school.
And the minute I touched the person, that was it for me. I knew I am exactly where I'm meant to be. And from there, I started seeking out energy work. One after another, from Reiki to pranic healing, angel energy healing, and all these wonderful third dimensional modalities that served their purpose and brought me into a 2016.
Yeah, it was a perfect unfolding. Perfect unfolding, leading you right to where you needed to be, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. They serve their divine purpose, and there's continuous serving purpose within the third dimension.
Yeah. So you split from your first husband.
Yes, I left. So much has happened, in the year 2013 to 2014 was a very intense year. A lot of things happened in my personal life. I'm not gonna get into it, here, but a lot of traumatic experiences that for 1 year, I literally was just crying and going through cleansing, and came across the oneness movement. I was involved in the oneness movement, and oneness assisted me greatly in stepping even further into love. And I just focused on my work, and the channeling became through the roof, just so loud and clear. Used to work with the Council of Light and was shown a group of light beings, and I was in the Council of Light itself. And that's how the first book was channeled. But
what's the name of your first book?
The first book is 40 Messages to Humanity. That one is not on Amazon. Simply, it just had to be how it is. It was just in my home, and whoever came, I would give it to them or they would purchase it.
Okay.
And the funny story about that book, because I was reading the first book for a year, a course of 1 year. And then I was sitting and I worked very closely with Ascended Master Yeshua. For 1 year, I could wear only white, and I had to go through a thorough healing, which was, I was being worked on, especially on my sacral chakra. It took like almost a year of constant teachings, receiving a lot of information from him, from Ascended Masters, from spirit guides, from myself, from all of the beautiful support that was here, because I was open to it, ready for it, and was actually receptive to it by hearing it. And I received his energy came in, and he said that you are to stop writing what you're writing. I said, but I spent a year. I was like, you're gonna stop. You are to write 40 messages. You have about 44 days. And I'm like, okay. And that's how I would go to the ocean. It was like in winter, I would wear like three coats, literally.
Winter in the Northeast.
So cold. All I had to do, just take my phone out and go. It was just typed on my behalf. And some of those messages are in the book too. It's compiled together.
Yeah, so the second book, I have the name, it's I Am Messages to Humanity.
Yes.
And when did you publish that? When did you?
I'm sorry?
When did you publish that?
A month ago.
Oh, so very recently.
Extremely recently, and it's so humbling. I have messages pouring into my mailbox. It's really
that's so great.
You know, the thing is, like, all these messages that I receive from a place of higher place, if we were just to summarize it, where they're coming from, they're coming from the place of love. Why are they here? To remind us who we truly are, and to always go into alignment, because it's a choice. It's a choice. No one is twisting our hand to be out of love vibration.
True.
Yeah? It's our choice. If somebody cuts you off on the street, how do you react to that? Whose choice it is? Always ours. So those messages that I was receiving, first and foremost, they are for me.
Yes.
It's always that way. The channeler is the student.
Yes.
So I was receiving it, the constant reminders for myself. But then they always said, and of course by them, it is me. Because we are one. These are not just words. The recent line that there is no such place where one soul ends and another begins, that is the truth. That is the truth. I am humanity. You are humanity. You are me.
Yes.
You know, this is the flesh, what separates us for the sake of individualized experience.
Yes.
So the source can experience itself. This is in my understanding, and to me, that is my truth.
Yes.
Our source experiencing ourselves. God is all-knowing. But knowing and experience, it's two different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautifully said. So thank you for sharing that. And so let's talk about how you ended up finding M-Onyx, because that is the path that we both are on. But, you know, we've all had our unfolding and path that led us to the energy modality we both practice now. Why don't you share that story and kind of how these lined up, and then here you are.
It's a cool story. It's a cool story, and I've heard so many amazing stories from the practitioners, how it's always exciting to hear, how did you get into how did M-Onyx find you? Yeah?
Yes.
For me, it was 2016. I think it was early March. It was early March. and I was sitting at my desk, and I received something like Galactic Federation of Light welcomes you, something like this. And I was like, what? I wasn't connecting, I wasn't channeling, I was doing bills, I think. And to me it was new, because I've never heard like, Galactic Federation of Light. So I went Googling, and somehow it brought me into Marconics homepage. So I looked through the page, and at first I was like, okay, that's interesting. But to back up a little bit, everything was timely, because I talked about this actually recently on Facebook page, is that I was doing all that I was doing, and I was doing pretty good. But I started to have a sensation, and it started in like winter of 2016, that this is not it. Like, I know I was serving and doing the best that I could for myself and for humanity, but I knew that something else was supposed to be, like, I was feeling the other contract.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how, like, Allison describes reaching a ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I felt reaching the ceiling. So that was before, then the Galactic Federation of Light, the tiny little telegram, little telegram received.
Yep.
Then within the few days of that time, things were popping up everywhere. Marconics, 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 Marconics. And then my friend, Karen, she says, I'm gonna go get a training in Marconics. I go, oh my God, are you for real? And she took a training in Arizona. And once she said that, which of course Karen and I had a contract, because we are no longer in each other's presence. Because
that's so interesting.
Yeah, because people fall away when the contract is complete.
Right.
And that was it. Then I went to the site. That time I was already focused, and I went through practitioner, the trainings that they offer. And I knew I couldn't just do level 1 or level 2. I knew I had to go from the beginning to the end. Signed up for recalibration, the I emerge, all of it.
Yes. It was like the whole meal deal. I did the same thing. Like, well, I'm just going to do it all right now. Like the intensive whole thing, which is did you do the whole thing at one time, or?
I did the whole thing at one time, but I was cut off. They're like, no, I emerged for you, because things were fusing, warmth, everything lost tangibility for me, because it was receiving recalibration and the 5-day training in the energy. And you know how that energy, how that amazing feels. Like, and you're done for now.
They just sort of like cut you off.
And I received I emerged later.
Oh my gosh. Oh my.
So that's how I arrived at Marconics. And recalibration, quantum recalibration experience for me was a massive, very powerful experience. I watched so much. I watched aspects of myself leave. I watched everything that was being done on my system, massive releases from hysterical laughter to hysterical crying, as we now know everything that gets taken from us, during the process. And then the second day, the whole day of conversations with God were amazing. And the one thing that I remember till today, and the God was a man, he was wearing a white suit, that's what I chose to interpret it as.
Mm-hmm.
But the most words that I remember till today was like, you wanted to see God. You have always said, I want to see you, I want to see you. Let me show you. And he takes this beautiful mirror, like it was so pretty, and he puts it to my face. And he goes, do you see God? I go, yeah, I'm looking at myself. He goes, exactly my point. Yeah.
Because God is within you was the message, right?
We are God.
Yes.
We are God experiencing itself. That's why since that day, I'm like, we are God, because I was told we are God. Yeah.
That's so
And
powerful.
it's very powerful, very powerful. My life changed tremendously. I saw an invisible hand wipe off everything, everything that I was comfortable with, but wasn't quite where it wasn't fully in my full alignment. So all that had to be let go of. And it took about a year for me, a good 8 months of really watching everything that no longer served, or watching the high vibration that I reached, it was falling away. I watched it fall away, from work to friends,
Relationships.
family, everything. The biggest gift, from our connects, for me, for you, for humanity, right, is that it takes away the fear. We strive toward not being in fear, and I worked so hard all my life not to be in fear, and to give myself a little pat in the back. I did okay, but not, I still had worries in me. Worry
There's a
about
lot
my
of
children, worry about the money, worry. It was taken, it went.
That's the beauty of it. We can actually pull and release some very deep rooted karmic things that are just so deeply entrenched that people aren't even consciously aware of.
Past lives, past experiences.
Yes, back to the beginning of the soul, and you can't consciously clear that if you don't have the awareness or the help or if you're not able to hold that vibrational frequency that will allow you to do that consciously. That's the beautiful thing, is this energy. It's a leg up. It helps you to accelerate your process towards being your highest and best self, I think, and being in full alignment with your highest aspects of self.
Absolutely. And why is it so hard for us to do that self-work, to go deep or make higher choices? Because of the density that we are in. It's the density that sucks us in and grabs a really hold on us, because ego has a very nice identification with it, and has a nice romantic thing going on between the ego and the density. I think they love each other.
They do.
So that's why it's so difficult.
A love affair. They're not letting go.
And almost what seems to me is impossible. Doesn't matter how hard we try, it is impossible to release all the karma that you hold in your chakras, and with the M-Onyx recalibration, that is one of the key ingredients in the process, right? Is pulling out all that gooey stuff, and that critical mass is needed, the 51%. So as
just tip the scale enough, I think. Just tip the scale enough that you can have the detachment to start really doing the work and showing up as your highest self, because you don't have all of that weighing you down.
Absolutely. We can rise above the density.
Yes.
M-Onyx helps us to rise above the density, so you can actually act and respond to life from the place more of your integrity, rather than the place of reacting to the reality that you are in, which is really, really dense.
Yes. It creates like a detachment. I tell people it's almost like when you watch a movie and you experience all the emotions of the movie at the movie theater, but you're not in the movie. When you get a recalibration, you get a detachment to what is actually presenting in your life. And with that detachment, you can show up as your highest and best self, rather than engaging in the conflict or the drama or the lower vibrational responses.
Absolutely.
To what's presenting, right? And so you must have seen a huge shift in your life going through all of that. It sounds like there was a tremendous amount of releasing that happened, and clearing and truth. It's almost like the veils just get pulled and pulled and pulled, and then you get more clarity every time another veil or sheet gets pulled off and cleared or programmed. You become more and more clear about who you are and what aligns for you, right?
Yes. And as the time goes on, it becomes no longer, it's something that you cannot not do. At this point of time, I cannot not be in my truth. I had a friend who came over, my very dear friend, one of my best friends, and her son is the age of my son, and she's not happy with his hair. So she goes, can you like help me out? Can you tell him? And I'm like, okay, let's see. And I'm like, why? I'm like, what's up? Do you like your hair? He's like, yeah. I'm like, the bang doesn't bother you? He's like, no. I'm like, so what do you want from him? She's like, you're supposed to help me. I'm like, I did. So you can. She goes, you know what? I think if somebody was here like aiming a pistol at me, you couldn't lie for me. I'm like, I think you're so right. I would have to let you know. You know, it's extremely refreshing. That's why when you live in your integrity, those who are true, no family members will be there for you, you know, because truth for me personally is the most refreshing thing. When you are true to yourself, it's essential. And with M-Onyx quantum recalibration, back to the point of, as you were saying, detachment, like watching a movie, that is the essential ingredient. The way I see it, it's so tangible, because when we are detached from the human experience, that's when we can truly step into loving the human experience, whether it's of our liking or not. Yeah, it's about, through the detachment, you can step into that higher love. And we know the Palladians govern that higher love, that higher heart activation. So you come out from the fear mode, from the fear and from attachment, and stepping right into the love vibration. For some, it's a gradual process. For some, it's literally overnight, like in my case, depending where you stand. But the fact that the karma gets pulled out, you get reconnected to the source, where those who carry the third dimensional energy system, that's not the case. There is that.
Also, I think you become more aligned, you become so aligned with your truth that all of a sudden you become so empowered that you can allow other people to have negative opinions of you or judgment, and you're like, you're not triggered by it. You're like, you're welcome to that opinion, but that does not define me. I know who I am. I can stand in my truth, my power. I'm not going to change and shift and
by responding that way, you are showing them also the way, and I'm sure it triggers something in that person also with that chain reaction.
Because I think society expects us or programs us to dim our light to conform and make everybody around us feel comfortable.
True, true.
And so when you are able to really stand in your integrity and truth, it makes people around you very uncomfortable because they're not necessarily walking in their truth or authentic life.
Yes. Or the opposite.
Right?
It inspires them to do the same. Because
Yes.
I think when we are, the only way we can be true to another is through being true to ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
If you are not true to self, you are lying to another also. You are not being in the integrity with who you truly are. So when we try to please somebody, whether it's your child or your lover or your friend or your family or your boss, you are living the life of others.
Yes.
It seems that you're living your life, but you are, because when you are out of your truth, you are trying to fit into the others' version of their truth.
Yes.
Which is not yours.
It's not aligned.
You are so in alignment, and when you are in your truth, those who are of the same vibration will always align. And that's all the matches that made in heaven.
Yes.
On all levels.
Mm-hmm.
On all levels.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I think, very serious lessons for us is the family members. Because in our head, you can't just let go of the family member, especially if it's your 10-year-old son. Right? So what do? You live in your truth. That's the only thing, in my understanding.
Also, I think the recognition that they are our greatest teachers. And
absolutely.
To actually go through the experiences of that, that relationship, it does make you realize that this contract was agreed long before we came in here.
Absolutely.
Chose to play these roles to reflect back to each other the lessons that needed to be shared and learned and transcended, transformed. And sometimes relationships fall away, and sometimes they come back together, and sometimes they end. But they all occur exactly and unfold as they're meant to, and in perfect timing as well. Even though on a human level, there's a lot of heartbreak around the outcomes, the heartbreak around the loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
yeah.
There's such a powerful lesson that's gained from walking through the experience, honoring the other person and where they are and why they are, showing up as themselves, and then standing in our truth and honoring what we must do to honor and align with our truth, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Children are, they're such a great way to reflect onto us that what we still need to work on. That would literally just put it in your face, either through their demeanor, their behavior, or even their words, like all of it. They show us. They're like the mirror image of what needs to be. Absolutely, absolutely. They
I
are
did
one
want
of the
to say one last thing about M-Onyx is I think a lot of people touch higher vibrational frequencies in meditations. I know there are so many people who put a lot of energy towards connection and going within and meditation, but for them it's very difficult to hold that higher vibrational frequency all the time. They might come up and then they come back down, and then they come up and they come back down. So they might be in that meditative space in a higher vibrational place. But it's very difficult in the density of this experience, human experience, to hold it. So Marconics is the gift that allows you to permanently plug in and hold the higher frequency. When you can hold that higher frequency, you can experience and create and manifest things in your life that match that vibration. And so your life unfolds in very powerful and beautiful ways once you own the power of your own manifestation and truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. To me, Marconics is the greatest gift to humanity as of right now, because again, you know, that it helps you to rise above the density. Alison David Bird gives this amazing analogy, and I use it all the time, is that imagine you're at the bottom of the ocean and there is a giant boulder tied to your feet. Marconics cuts the rope so you can float up. But you know, there is time that you gotta do your own swimming so you can get above the waves, because free will choice, it's always there. Which choices do we make? Marconics makes it easier. You don't get sucked into the density so much. You're vibrating higher. You get liberated from the attachment. You reconnected to yourself at source. You become a ionic generator, constantly anchoring, like you are saying, that light, and it's felt everywhere you go, and you're affecting people without even talking to them. But every day you still got to make that choice, because that free will is still there to constantly make choices.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we want to stay in integrity, we have to make the choice to do so in every situation, in what we eat, and how we show up for people, in our truth, in our relationships, in our business, everything matters.
Yes,
It matters. It may seem insignificant, but it does matter. And so, Shanti, you're such a beautiful being of light. You really are.
Where are you?
We'll find you. Please share your website address, and I'll type it. I'll edit it into our little space below, so people can go to your website and find you, find your book, find your work. I know you do distance energy sessions. And what part of the country are you located in? So people in that area listening in can find
I'm in Massachusetts. I'm in North Andover, Massachusetts, about 30 miles north of Boston.
Okay, so what's your web address?
It's ascensionguide333.com.
Awesome. I'll put that in the text below so people can find you.
Beautiful, thank you.
At the end of the video, I'll include all of your contact information, and so if people want to reach out to you for coaching, you have so much to offer.
Thank you.
Healing, just spiritual guidance. I mean, I think
I'm here to assist.
Yes, you have stepped into your purpose, it sounds like, fully and completely.
Yes. And for me, the mission is ascension. The mission is Marconics. And I scream it from the top of my lungs. So grateful for Alison David Bird to anchor it on the planet, finally. And listen for doing the same.
Yes, they've done beautiful work.
Eternally grateful for that.
Yes.
And thank you so much for choosing me to be on the show and sharing this with you, Wendy.
Oh, I couldn't not have you on.
Very humble. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think you have been such a great example of really walking and standing in your truth and authenticity, which is what this show is about. I want to reflect for people, and knowing that if we can do it, they can do it. Right?
Absolutely.
We have,
Absolutely.
it wasn't like we had this magic bullet or special pill or pass that allowed us to just bypass the whole process of awakening. If we can do it based on where we're from and who we are, then they can certainly take the next step and take the next step. And it does take time sometimes. Right?
All it takes is a choice and commitment to evolution of yourself.
Yes. So
It's about satisfaction versus fulfillment.
Right.
It's all about what is it that you're choosing to be at any given moment of time. Who do you choose to be?
That's so powerful. So thank you for sharing all your wisdom today. You have given everyone so much to think about. So I think, do you have any last parting words before we sign off? Or
Parting words, be joyful. Doesn't matter where you are, align with your highest potential. Always hold the highest thought about yourself and never ever disbelieve that you are not possible in any shape or form, that you are not capable of something. Never let anything that is negative talk, don't allow it. Realize that you are God experiencing yourself and rejoice in your own evolution and your own remaking, because that's what's going on right now for every single person on the planet. And it's your choice what happens, how much do you allow. All unfolds to the level of our allowing.
that's so beautiful. Well, Shanti, I must say the light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.
Namaste.
And to all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Please subscribe, like, and share to the YouTube channel. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much, and I love you all. Bye.